We're going live. Okay.
Good. I just want to welcome everybody to this meeting of the minds with Jason Smith and Jim Zeta, two employment law attorneys here in Tarrant County who have been working a lot over the last 6 weeks to help employees and workers figure out their rights and their opportunities as we deal with all of the financial and workplace effects of COVID-19. I'm Mike Coffey. I'm an HR professional here in Fort Worth, and glad to call both these guys friends. Let's start with the state of unemployment insurance right now. Jim, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm going to run through some numbers and run through some facts and just kind of get everybody up to date. And I'll get to the punchline right now is that in between now and July 30, if someone's on unemployment, right now the way the numbers work out, you may make more through unemployment than you would through your job. But we'll get to that at the end. Right now, there's 26 million people nationwide who are unemployed. That's a 15 to 20% unemployment rate, which means 1 in 5 to 1 in 6 Americans who want to work don't have a job. In Texas, we've got 1.66 million unemployment claims in the last 6 weeks. That's 275,000 unemployment claims per week. Here in Tarrant County, we've got 80,177 unemployment claims in the last 6 weeks. That's 13,000 a week. Down in Harris County, where they've been hit by both COVID and oil, they're up to 200,000 unemployment claims in the last 6 weeks. I watched last night, the commissioner of Texas Workforce Commission gave about a half-hour interview, gave kind of up-to-date information, and I'll try and go through that relatively quickly. The people who can file, you can file if you're an employee who's been fired or laid off. You can file if you're self-employed and you've had a reduction in income. You can file if you're an independent contractor, a 1099 worker, or a gig worker. How to file? You file with the Texas Workforce Commission, and we highly recommend that you file online at twc.texas.gov. 95% of the people who are filing online are successful. When you file online as an independent contractor, self-employed, 1099, or gig worker, when they ask you what's the reason that you're filing for unemployment, you put in that part reduced hours. So that is what the TWC chairman is recommending that you say. If you get kicked out of the system and you're told to call, then you run into trouble. And we'll get in that in a little bit. They're trying to fix it, but not necessarily having the best of times with it. How long to get your money? It takes 14 to 21 days, and you get it either through direct deposit or a debit card. If you've applied and they've accepted your application, but you haven't got your money yet, and it's not 2 weeks or 3 weeks, be patient. It is coming. They will tell you that's going to come. How much do you get? That's kind of the punchline that we were talking about in the beginning. If you're an independent contractor, you're self-employed, you're 1099 or a gig worker, right now what they're going to pay you, this isn't if you're employed, but if you're in the self-employed or the independent contractor, they're going to start out paying you $207 a week for the state money and $600 a week for the federal money. And then what they're going to do is get your information and go back and recalculate as to what the numbers are. So if you're in one of those categories, you should expect to get about $807 per week. If you're an employee who's now unemployed, you're going to receive between $69 and $521 a week from the state, and you're going to get an additional $600 a week from the feds. So you're going to receive, and you don't have to file 2 claims, you only have to file 1. So if you're unemployed, you're going to receive between $669 and $1,121 per week. Now that $600 is the extra federal money, and that money runs from April 4th to July 25th. So for that period, you'll receive an extra $600 a week, and that money runs out July 25th. Now the state normally pays 26 weeks of unemployment, but under the new federal law, they've increased that another 13 weeks. So that's 39 weeks. So what that realistically means is that you're going to receive if you were laid off during the March, April time period, you're going to receive the federal money and the state money to the end of July, and then you'll receive the state money till right around Christmas. So around Christmas is when most people who have gone through unemployment will now then be out there trying to find another job if they haven't been able to do one. The TWC has just now got their computers up to speed to handle $600 a week. And so the federal money is not flowing yet. They're saying the federal money is going to flow in the next couple of weeks. So be patient there. If you filed now, but you want to go back retroactive to April 4th, don't worry, the TWC is handling that. There's been 800,000 applications that have been accepted. There's already been $1.7 billion distributed. Another thing, just as an aside, the student loan payments are suspended until September 30. There are jobs available if you want to find them and see if they match for you. There's two places that are recommended. One is called workintexas.com, WORKINTEXAS.com. And the other one for Tarrant County is workforcesolutions.net. And that's Workforce Solution for Tarrant County. And the third place you can look is Indeed, where you can put your application online. What are the problems that we're facing right now in unemployment? The call volume is still high. They've gotten 8 call centers now from when there were 4. They're still going 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But people are getting nervous. They're not getting their money, and they're calling, and they're tying up the lines. People are wondering, do I need to file to get the additional 13 weeks from the federal government, the July stuff? You do not. There is right now a scam going on Facebook where people are saying that you fill out a generic unemployment claim form, and you don't need to do that. That's not it. That scammer is trying to get your personal information. On the other hand, you may get a call from a TWC worker, and those TWC workers, it may show up on your phone as an unknown caller, because right now they've got all hands on deck and they've got people using their cell phones. So if someone from the TWC calls you and wants information, what the TWC commissioner recommends is that you ask them to give you some personal information to confirm that it's your account. So basic information about you. And if they do, then you can go ahead and give them personal information. The last thing I want to go to, and that was the thing I talked about at the beginning. If you make $25 an hour, which works out to $50,000 per year, you're going to end up making more money on unemployment than you will on working. And that gets you make even more money on unemployment the less you make. If you make $20 an hour, you're going to make, for the first through the end of July, you're going to make over $1,000 a week on unemployment. That's $416 from the state and $600 from feds. And what you normally would bring home is $665 a week. So if you make $20 an hour on unemployment, you're going to make $1,000 a week. And if you work, you're going to make $665 a week. And if you make $10 an hour, you're going to make $808 a week on unemployment. And you're going to have $340 a week for your job. You're going to make $500 a week more if you make $10 an hour on unemployment. And why is that? Why is that? The reason that is because the federal government had to do $600 a week because the computer systems throughout the unemployment systems throughout the country are so old. They all have computer language from the 90s, that they couldn't do a percentage. They couldn't do a stair step. They had no choice but to do this flat $600 a week, which has led to this aberration, which has led to this weird situation. And the last thing I'll say on it, an anecdotal story, there was a lady who had 18 employees, and she got her PPP loan, which we'll talk about later. She was able to bring her employees back. She had a Zoom call with all her employees, and she said, guess what? I laid you off, but I'm bringing you back. Which has led to this aberration, which has led to this weird. Instead of being excited, and the last people were disappointed. And what she was trying to figure out why they were disappointed, and then she realized what's happening is that people make more money on unemployment through the end of July than they do if they work. So that's kind of the update, Mike, on what's going on my end on unemployment.
Jason, what's your take? What are you hearing from potential clients and from workers that you talk to?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Jason Smith. I practice employment law on the south side of Fort Worth, and our phone has been ringing off the hook from a lot of folks who have either been laid off or furloughed or had their hours reduced. And we're really hearing a lot of fear and folks looking for any avenue to get income. Just to take a couple steps back, in 2018, the Federal Reserve issued a report that indicated that 40% of all American families couldn't handle a $400 emergency. The president of the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank issued a report just a couple weeks ago in which he calculated that the unemployment rate would reach 32% this summer. That's higher than the unemployment rate during the Great Depression of this country of the 1930s. And then JP Morgan has forecasted that the unemployment rate, when people do return to work and some businesses do come back online, that the unemployment rate this fall will still be 15%. And the real message that I have for folks is, sadly, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg on the economic impact, the widespread economic impact on families that this pandemic is brought to our economy. We've had a lot of hotel workers and restaurant workers and other types of workers lose their jobs, but those are going to have domino effects in the economy. And quite frankly, the loss of buying power is going to have domino effects. We also are now seeing folks who were up the economic food chain having their hours reduced or having their pay reduced in a way that they didn't think it would impact. And then on top of all of this, there have been some international developments that have caused the oil market, the bottom to drop out of the oil market, and to cause gas drilling companies and oil companies to really, a lot of them are going to go out of business. And a lot of oil-related industries that exist throughout Texas, in Fort Worth, in Houston, in West Texas, are on top of all of this are taking an economic hit. And so sadly, my message for everyone is to brace yourselves. It may not seem like it's going to impact you today, but things are coming fast. We've lost all of the job gains that we've made in the last 12 years in the last 6 weeks. Just think about that as an economy. Now, some of those will come back as we bring the economy back online. So how do I deal with this is a question that I get from a lot of folks. Number one, if you find yourself either furloughed or laid off, or if you're self-employed, you're a gig worker, you drive a Lyft or an Uber, or you drive for favor and you find your income down, or if you own a small business and you find your income down, first thing I tell people is don't try to figure out whether or not you're eligible for unemployment benefits. File for unemployment benefits and then let God sort it out. Number two is just 8 weeks ago, we had the mindset that really workers had the opportunity to, if they didn't like a job, because workers were so in demand, that they could move from a job and move to another job and maybe make more money. Those days are gone. If you have a job, my number one piece of advice would be find every way you can to hold on to that job. There are some exceptions to that. Maybe if you're a doctor or a nurse, you're going to be in high demand, but otherwise, people need to have a different mindset about their jobs and holding on to their jobs, and realizing that they're really not going to be the economic fluidity and opportunity that there was. Number three, people need to realize that the time it will take to find another job is going to be a while. Back in the Great Recession, even around here, where we didn't experience it near as harshly as the rest of the country, back in 2008, 2009, 2010, because we had gas drilling offsetting some of the economic hardship that was impacting the rest of the country. One of the things that folks need to realize is we don't have that now. We don't have that safety net. And that if you, back then, it would take clients of mine to find 18 months to 2 years to find a replacement job, and unemployment was only in existence. There were unemployment benefits for about a year then. 6 months normal, and then they extended it for 6 months. And so you have, it's going to take that long. So while Jim Zeta talked about it may be to people's advantage to stay on unemployment benefits, if you have a job opportunity after being on benefits for 3 months, it may make economic sense to take that job. And quite frankly, I think in my experience, people around here like to work. That plays a big part of how they grew up and their identity, and they want to work for their money if they can. But also realize if you get a job offer 3 months from now, you may not get another job offer for a year or 2 years. And so while you may have had the luxury of waiting for better job opportunities, say even 2 months ago, again, a different calculus, I think, is entering for families when making decisions about what jobs to take. So file for unemployment. If you get denied for unemployment, my next tip is appeal the denial. Sometimes governmental entities just deny it in order to keep the process flowing, or maybe they're getting too many claims and they need to deny so many. So appeal, you'll have an opportunity to tell why you should be eligible. In addition, some gig workers are finding it difficult to upload their earnings, so it can be determined what they can receive, and they're being denied even though they qualify, and that appeal will allow you to provide that information. So on the unemployment front, that's what I have to say. And just people need to get a new mindset as to what job opportunities are and what the hardships are going to be for folks, and how we're going to have to look out for one another. I have some thoughts on family medical leave that we'll have later in the discussion. But
yeah, let me ask you guys a couple questions. Jim mentioned that basically anybody who was making less than $25 an hour is doing as well or better than they were if they were going to work. But as you mentioned, Jason, you said 3 months, but if an employer gets their PPP money and calls their employees back today, and that employee is going to take a pay cut, the reality is if they decide not to come back, although they probably should, that job may be filled by somebody else, and there may be no opportunity for them. So how would you advise an employee to do that calculus if their employer calls them back? Maybe they're making $15, $16 an hour, and they've got even kids at home because we're not in school. How would you advise the employee to approach that situation?
Well, I'll start out, Jason, and then you can chime in. I think what the employees need to understand is that on July 25th, everybody is going to stop making $600 a week. And so everybody in July 25th is going to make the reduced state amount. And at that point, everybody's going to be looking for a job. And so you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that person on July 26th who's applying for a job along with 1.66 other Texans, 6 million other Texans. The other point I would make is I'm a big believer that we're going to have a second wave hit really hard in September, October, November. When that second wave hits, you want to be in a steady job. You want to be with a good employer like Mike Coffey or Jason Smith. You want to be with some good employers who will take care of their employees and will do everything they can to keep their employees on. You don't want to be in a situation where we hit the second wave, we get another set of stay-at-home orders, and your state benefits run out around Christmas and you got nothing going on. So a lot of people and employees are going to take advantage of this. They're not going to go out and seek unemployment or seek employment till the end of July. My recommendation would be go out there and look for a job sooner rather than later, because it is, like Jason said, it is going to be a difficult market and you want to get in.
Yeah, I've been for the last dozen years. I've said that corporate America had declared war on the middle class, and really we have because of the economic gains, workers productivity in earning those gains, workers had a little bit better footing and a little bit more of an ability to control themselves. And there are good employers out there. There are good major corporate employers out there who have an ethic of and see that the productivity of their workers and investing in those workers are really the key to their success. But there's quite frankly also a very sad ethic of many corporations and big corporations in this country who quite frankly, just look at their labor force as a widget. I like to say that corporations are neither moral or immoral. They're amoral, and they're about the bottom line. And now the bottom line is going to compel them to make cuts, and that's why they're cutting these workers. There's some companies that are going to be able to escape that. Defense contractors like Lockheed are actually in the process of hiring, and so if you have experience in the aerospace industry or in the defense industry or in the manufacturing industry, I would encourage you to get your application with Lockheed today. They're hiring over 500. They've got 500 slots that they're hiring people for. And we're going to keep producing those weapon systems in order to be ready in terms of our national security. But there's going to be other organizations that quite frankly can't bring people back, and that'll be the hotel industry. We have a mutual friend who recently took a flight and sent us a picture from that flight, and it was like he was on a personal jet because there was almost no one on that plane. And so companies like American Airlines and Southwest Airlines that are so important to our economy are invariably going to have problems going forward. In terms of, and then the related hotel industries, those are going to have trouble bringing folks back. And so, if you just got to be nimble. You've got to have some hustle, and you're going to have some flexibility that you weren't used to. I'll tell the story that someone called my office this week and was having a dispute with an employer, and the employer wasn't treating them in a very professional way. Granted. And their response was, well, I think I'll go find another job, but I wondered if I could sue them if I quit. And I had to counsel them that of this new reality that they really weren't going to have the opportunity like they did even 8 weeks ago to find another job. And if they had that job to hold on to it, people are going to have to get really utilize their resources like Indeed, which is a job search engine, Monster.com, the other engines like that. And then they're going to have to reach out to their networks. And we have a lot of time at home right now. So I would encourage people to reach out to their relatives and their friends and their family members and their neighbors. And then we're going to have some neighbors who are impacted like this, and we're going to be surprised. And we're going to have to help those in our community that are impacted. And we're going to have to really encourage our leaders, like the city of Fort Worth, to provide more assistance for rent assistance, more assistance for utility assistance. And then we're going to have to ask the entities like the PUC to delay any interruptions in utility and gas service, at least for the next 90 days, so people aren't stuck in the summer when they can't afford it, especially after those $600 checks cut off in July, as Jim talked about, where they can keep their utilities going. So people are going to have to be nimble, and they're going to have to hustle.
There's a question on the Facebook, or at least on my Facebook watch party. Can either of you talk about how pension benefits would affect somebody's eligibility for unemployment? The question was basically that somebody's on a pension, but they were working as a 1099 contractor to supplement that income. And I think I know what my take is on it, but I'll listen to you guys first. I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Pension benefits do not affect a person's eligibility for unemployment benefits so long as they were working in the economy. The idea is if you were out there being industrious, being productive, the idea of the expanded benefits to folks who were self-employed or gig workers is to get money into the economy and to keep folks from defaulting on their mortgage, from not being able to pay their bills, to filling some void in the consumer boost in our economy.
Yeah, and the federal unemployment, as we talked about, is a flat 600. Where any sort of calculation comes back in for the gig workers or the self-employed is on the state. And right now they're just doing it at that baseline $207 on the state. So you'll get the 207 and the 600, and then they may come back and recalculate based on some financial information. But if you're a gig worker or self-employed or independent contractor and you've had a reduction in hours or income, I agree 100% with Jason. Go ahead and apply. And pension benefits should not affect that.
I helped somebody yesterday do some of the math, and an employer wanted to bring them back on a part-time basis, and you can earn up to 25% of your benefit in wages without it impacting your benefit amount. And
that's important.
So that's something else that you could work part-time at least, or if not full-time, depending on what you're earning. And it may not affect your benefit at all. Then you still get the full 600, even if you get reduced benefit. Basically, if you're making $1 in unemployment, you get the full 600 from the Fed. So that's not prorated. So employees really should look through all of their options for that. But the biggest fear is, for me, when people are talking about holding out, I don't want to go back to work yet. It's not convenient to go back, or maybe I'm even scared about getting exposed, but the reality is that job, if that employer needs to fill that job right now, it's going to get filled real quick, and you may not have a place to go when you're ready to go back. Jason, you wanted to talk about FMLA. Well, why don't you start down that road?
Yeah, the Family Medical Leave Act is a law that provides that an employee who has worked for a company for at least a year, and the employer has at least 50 employees within a 75-mile radius, that employee is eligible for 12 weeks of family medical leave if that involves either they have a health issue or they have a loved one that has a health issue that they have to take care, or they have there's also some situations involving grieving and bereavement that can be provided, but that's the general rule. And then Congress a few weeks ago passed an extended Family Medical Leave Act that would apply to a different set of workers, an expanded set of workers. The Family Medical Leave Act would not, as originally written, didn't cover a situation where an employee had to stay at home with a child who was no longer in school because school closed because of the pandemic. Well, the Family Medical Leave Act that was passed a few weeks ago expanded family medical leave to protect workers that had to stay home with their child who was left at home because the school closed. Two, if the person thought they had coronavirus, had symptoms, and was seeking treatment, they could stay home and their job would be held open for 12 weeks. Three, if they had been ordered by the government to stay home, again, if, say, the government quarantined the individual or someone in the house and they were required to stay at home, they got 12 weeks. And then also as part of that law, for the first time, there's been we are the only Western nation that doesn't have paid family medical leave. And for the first time, we passed a paid family medical leave albeit only for employers with less than 500 employees. But for over that 12-week period, some employers have some requirement to provide some amount of pay, and they're doing it. Although a lot of employers have been nimble and had folks, rather than pay them leave pay, they've had them work from home, and they found that those workers can be productive and add value to the company. And it's interesting the innovation that has come out of that, not only in terms of technology, but in terms of how companies have found out that they can accomplish their goals. So if you are sick or you have to stay home with a kid, the Family Medical Leave Act provides that your job will be held open for 12 weeks. That's crucial because if the company is retaining folks, they can't let you go just because you can't work, which is the general rule if we didn't have the Family Medical Leave Act. And unfortunately, it's the general rule for companies that don't have at least 25 employees.
But if the employer does have to do a layoff and you're on FMLA, do you have any protections there, Jason?
Well, that's interesting. We've been getting calls at the office, and sadly, some irresponsible employers are taking this opportunity to target certain types of workers, target workers that are on family medical leave, but retain other workers who've been with the company a shorter period of time. And that's despicable and that's illegal, but we're seeing that. We're also seeing situations where employers are targeting maybe just the employees who had filed workers' comp claims for layoff, and then they're leaving other employees on the clock who have less experience or less tenure with the company, and those are red flags. So while an employer, if they laid off their entire workforce, could of course lay off someone who was on family medical leave, that doesn't guarantee you a job if the company decides to go out of business. But the company can't pick or choose based on whether or not an employee is on family medical leave.
Jim, anything to add on FMLA?
No, I agree with all of what Jason said on that. I think the paid family medical leave, where if you're sick, you can get up to $511 a day for 12 weeks, or if you have to take care of someone who is, you can get up to $200. That's a really important act. But I do agree that I'm seeing as well, Jason and I both do employment law, and I am seeing as well and getting calls for people who have been terminated, but the whole workforce was terminated. And in those situations, it's very difficult for us to do something. But if they are targeted for something other than workplace performance, if they're targeted and they get terminated and they are protected under FMLA, then we look at those real carefully.
Yeah, and the advice I'm giving employers who we're talking about that is make sure that you've got objective reasons for determining who gets laid off, and that it's not their status on leave, but it's past performance and skills and all of those things, and that you're prioritizing, if we're laying off a certain kind of employee because there's no demand for them, make sure we prioritize based on something objective rather than just looking at that skill set or looking at their status as on FMLA. Jim, you also work, I know, with a lot of small businesses. What's going on that front in your office?
So, yeah, right now the hot topic for small, there's two hot topics. One is the payroll protection program, the PPP loans, and what's going on with those. We get a lot of inquiries about those as to, hey, we did not get chosen, and you hear that banks are getting sued because they reprioritized it. But as you may know, there was another $350 billion earmarked for the program. And so we're waiting to see how that plays out. The other area that's an area of focus for my firm, we often sue insurance companies in cases where homes or businesses have been damaged by wind or hail, and the insurance company either underpays or refuses to pay. And what we found is for businesses, small businesses, they don't understand that in this situation with COVID-19, that they may have some coverage under their insurance policies. This topic of whether or not a comprehensive general liability policy or a business loss policy will cover damages, income loss to a small business, this topic is raging right now, and it changes on a weekly basis. But we are looking at everybody's policy for small businesses. I just got one just this afternoon for a small business. And what we do is review the policy and see whether or not there's a potential claim. The issue with this, what makes it difficult, is that there are so many different policies, so much different language, and sometimes the whole case will turn on one or two words in the policy or an exclusion that someone didn't know about. So what we are encouraging people to do is, if you believe, if you have a small business and your small business has laid people off or it has to shut down, we're asking people to send us their insurance policies. We do a review and then help them with the process of going through a claim, with the understanding that this is evolving right now.
If I was going to look at my small business policy, what kind of language would I look for that may give me a hint that I might have some coverage?
Yeah, so what we're saying is just send us the policy no matter what you have, because it is so complex. There are named peril policies, which only cover certain perils, certain things that happen. There's all risk policies, which are more broad, and we look at those. Some people are saying, well, I didn't have physical loss, and therefore, since there's no physical loss to the business, I don't have coverage. You know, that argument is starting to go away. I think the plaintiffs' bar has done a good job of getting around that. And now where the insurance companies are hanging their hat on the exclusions in the policy, such as the pollution exclusion, or there may be a virus exclusion. And so, like I said, it's evolving every day. The best way to do it is, you know, as a small business owner, you don't even know what you have. So you call your broker or your agent, have them email you the policy, and have an attorney look at the policy, and they can determine whether or not you have a potential claim. Then we recommend you file a claim, and then once you file a claim, it'll likely be denied. And by that time, a lot of these issues will have percolated to the top, and we can make a decision as to whether or not we go forward with the case or not.
And if you need that kind of help, you can go to ZetaFirm.com.
ZetaFirm.com.
Is that right?
There. Or ZLawZ is another, ZLawZ.com is another place to go. But if you need that, just reach out to us and just get your policy, send them to us, and we'll look at them, and we'll let you know whether you got a shot or not.
And the PPP extension is, I think, on the president's desk right now. Before we started this, I don't think he had signed it yet. So
okay, all it
signed, I think, this afternoon.
Yeah. And the other thing about that, real quick, is that there is, if you're a minority-owned business, there is, I think, $50 billion in that earmarked for minority-owned business specifically. And so, if you are a minority-owned business, you may be able to get to the head of the line on this second round.
Anything either of you has to say additional around PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program?
You're on mute, Jason. Jason, you're on mute.
Yeah, I do think that the PPP program is going to keep some folks employed by small business that wouldn't have been employed otherwise. And it wouldn't surprise me, this is the second round of funding. It wouldn't surprise me if there was another round of funding. So if you are a small business owner, again, I can't say enough, the loan is forgivable up to the amount that you spend on salaries for a certain period of time, for health benefits for a certain period of time, for mortgage interest or rent payments for a certain period of time. And that's money you don't have to pay back. So it is a great resource. I would encourage you, if you're a small business owner, to today start developing a relationship with a banker if you don't have one. So the next time there is funding, or the next time there is a program that has a forgivable loan, that you can call that banker that you've already established a rapport with, to provide, to apply for those benefits, because they're not only going to help you as a small business owner, they're going to help your team that you employ. And to me, that's really important. And as a small business owner, I applied for that loan because my staff really makes our law practice productive and where we can help people. And so that gives me a lot of relief that I can keep them on board fighting for my clients.
We're running up on our time. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you guys would like to cover?
I would just encourage people, if they lost their job or their income is down, that to go ahead and apply for unemployment, to keep looking for work, to keep their head down, take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your neighbors, help small businesses in the area, and we will get through this. Even if we hit the second wave by this time next year, we'll be past this. It'll be different. There'll be a lot more people unemployed. The economy will be a little slower to get going, but we're going to get past it. So I would encourage everybody to just stay strong, stay safe, stay at home.
And I would encourage people to realize that we have a new economic reality that for a lot of reasons we're faced with. And people are going to have to be nimble and resourceful and erase from their minds what they thought our economy was and what their opportunities were. Because for most people, there are going to be very limited opportunities. And I don't say that to scare people. I say that so they can move forward with open eyes as to how tough and how challenging this really is going to be. You can be nimble and look for opportunities. If an opportunity presents itself, remember that it may be the only opportunity you're offered for another year. And so have that factor into your decision. If you do have a job and you're let go, were you let go because you took family medical leave? Were you let go because you'd previously complained about illegal discrimination? Is that why you were targeted? And I think people need to keep that in mind. And then also realize that you got expanded rights to take family medical leave, which I think gives people some job security, at least for that 12-week period.
Well, I just want to thank both you guys and the audience. We've got quite a group on Facebook watching. And my only advice is, just a word of encouragement. We all live in the greatest nation on the planet, and there's no better time in human history than to be alive than even right now. So we've got this. There'll be struggles, but we've always come together as a country. We've always stuck by our neighbors and taking care of each other. And I have no doubt that here in Fort Worth and nationwide we'll do the same. So just keep your chin up, be well, and like Jim said, stay home. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
Stay well.